Russia has spent the last few years growing its list of Western enemies, but the country's relationship with Israel has only improved. In spite of Russian support for Syria and a long history of tense adversarial relations, Israel and Russia are close geopolitical allies. So, why exactly do the two countries love each other? Well, the political and social history of Russia and Israel is actually incredibly unique. Early on in Israel's formation, the Soviet Union was a major supporter of a Jewish state. Allegedly, Russian dictator Joseph Stalin expected the new country to be socialist, and the USSR was even the second country in the world to recognize Israeli sovereignty, after the United States. However, this support was not long-lasting. In an effort to gain control over the Middle East, Russia funded and armed countries like Syria, Iraq, Libya, Egypt, and others. Meanwhile, the United States provided military and financial support to Israel, creating a de facto adversary to the Soviet Union. And yet, in spite of their political divide, the people of Israel and Russia have seen parallel social development. Due to the Soviet Union's persecution of religion, and in particular the country's state-sanctioned anti-Semitism, Israel served as a welcoming home for Jewish Russians, known as refuseniks. In 1970, a group of refuseniks attempted to hijack an airplane in order to escape the Soviet Union. And while they failed, it drew international attention to the fact that conditions within Russia were terrible, and those who wanted to leave weren't allowed to. So throughout the 1970s, Russia allowed hundreds of thousands of Jewish Russians to leave the country, and by 1988, an estimated 160,000 had emigrated to Israel. This mass migration of Jews was known as the 1970 Aliyah. Once in Israel, Russians were able to assimilate while introducing their own social norms, including a focus on high culture, such as theater, literature, music, and art. When the Soviet Union's last leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, opened the country's borders, a second massive wave of Russian Jews came to Israel, close to 1 million over the following decade and a half. There are now more Russian Jews living in Israel than there are in Russia, and Russia is the largest source of international Jews in Israel. This enormous domestic influence of both Jewish culture in Russia and Russian culture in Israel may be the reason that both countries are incredibly sympathetic to each other, in spite of their international disagreements. In the early 2000s, the two populations elected leaders who are outspoken supporters of each other: Russia's Vladimir Putin and Israel's Ariel Sharon. Israel's current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, himself has family roots in the former Russian Empire. For the past decade, much of Israel's ability to maintain both their sovereignty and avoiding international sanctions has stemmed from broad and equal support from both of the world's 20th century superpowers, the United States and Russia. In fact, the US and Russia, in addition to the United Nations and the European Union, make up the Middle East Quartet, which is a collection of national bodies working to solve the Israeli-Palestinian crisis. On the one hand, Russia has been working to support the Syrian regime, which has repeatedly attempted to destroy Israel. Meanwhile, Israel stands opposed to Iran, Russia's longtime ally. And yet, the two countries have cultures and politics that are so deeply intertwined that their social bond is able to overcome any military divisiveness.
Iran and Israel have been opposed for decades. To learn about why the two hate each other, despite sharing allies, watch this video right here. Thanks for checking out NowThis World. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this every week.